What's going on YouTube? Kronos here, and welcome back to another PSO2 video. So I know the channel has been a bit dry on videos recently. We haven't released as much content as we usually do, and it's because I've been busy on Twitch a bit more often. I've been working on other stuff on the side, and to be honest, there's not a whole lot I need to physically work on when it comes to PSO2. What happens when you play it almost every day. That tends to happen. And so some of you guys are already feeling the burnout. Just to address those people fairly early on in this video, and this is what the video is going to be about, by the way. I know it's already at the start and I'm already on a tangent. But to address those guys, highly recommend checking something out, maybe taking a break, setting it aside. Having a game you love set on the side is not always a bad thing, so I recommend picking something up and playing something else. You guys who have been watching the Twitch channel know that I picked up the new recent SAO game and been playing that a ton, like a lot, to the point where you guys can't see it, but it's almost 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up at 9 p.m. because I played like 15 hours in my first sitting, not to mention streaming over half of that. So that's a lot of fun. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the reason for this video. So I did want to talk about a topic that tends to come up quite a bit in the PSO2 community. It comes up in a lot of MMO communities, actually. It's the conversation of BIS, or for those of you guys who don't know what the term is, best in slot. It's the chase for the absolute best piece of gear, best piece of loot, best stats, so on and so forth. It essentially means it's very literal meaning of the word itself. It is the best piece of gear you can have equipped into that slot. Nothing else is better than it. That's its basic meaning across multiple games, multiple MMOs, things of that sort. A lot of endgame action adventure games too, stuff like that, that have a focus on gearing. People always have the chase for what you like to think of as best in slot. And it tends to come up a lot in the PSO2 community, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit more and kind of dive in depth into why best in slot isn't exactly the easiest term to use when it comes to gearing in PSO2. Now, I want to toss a disclaimer on this. I am by no means saying that I am the end all be all when it comes to resources on all of these weapons, on all of these units, or anything along those lines. I want to do my best to spread the knowledge that I've had playing the game for multiple years, things that I look at that other players may not, be aware of or may not know to look for whenever they're looking at all these pieces of loot. If you understand this stuff on your own, by all means, go for it. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. However, what you guys will find in the comments, this goes to my viewers or anyone else that's been watching, is sometimes people are looking for their specific viewpoint to be justified. Their piece of loot, the way they do something, so on and so forth, they're looking for someone to agree with what they're saying. And I can understand that sentiment. However, I'm not looking at those things in that sort of light. I'm not telling you what my favorite piece of gear is. I'm telling you what I've found has been the best for me personally and how I've progressed and I've played the game itself. There are players that have played way much better than me that do more when it comes down to it, damage is the name of the game, but that do more damage, that play content, and that crush it faster than I do. There's no question when it comes to that. However, when it's all said and done, best in slot doesn't make you into that player. That's something that a lot of people tend to struggle with. You use gear as an excuse for player skill, not saying, hey, look, dude, don't say, your gear is bad, that's why you're bad. What I'm basically saying is, don't let that be a hindrance to you as to why you can improve as a player, if that's your goal. It's a very big part of this. That's if that is your goal. If you're just having fun, man, just have fun. That's up to each individual person. However, if your goal is to improve, don't let your gear be the reason that you say you can't continue to move forward, because a lot of people can, and they've done much better with much worse. So why is best in slot so weird when it comes to Phantasy Star? What's the difference, and why is it such a strange thought to have? So for that, we're going to hop over to the wiki and talk about it a little bit more in depth. I'm gonna do this so I can get my actual toolbar. I lost the word for a moment, my toolbar across the top here. So best in slot in PSO2, in reality, there are some best in slot weapons and there are some best in slot units in a sense. However, how strong those weapons and units are can vary depending upon situations. Not every weapon fits into every category. Not every unit fits into every category, especially now with the introduction of 12-star units that we've gotten with the Ray units themselves. Now, I'm not sure why I've seen this come up. I don't know how many times beforehand, but people tend to ask, what's the purpose in going for 12-star units? Why would you look at them when, to be honest, something like the 11-star bracelet units are better? Well, with the basic term itself, best in slot, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you they're not. The BRISA units are not better whatsoever. Now, that's not to say that the Ray units are substantially better than the BRISA units. If we're just looking at what they actually provide, it's not that much more. We'll go ahead and take a look at these really quick here. Now, I've got most of these sets memorized, but if you're looking at the actual BRISA units themselves, we can see that they give 40 HP and 5 PP. And of course, you have the defensive stats here. Those are what they are. So you also get a set bonus of equipping all 3 of those BRISA units together of, I think off the top of my head, it's 80 HP, 5 PP, and 70 all attack, I believe. Let's see if I was right about that. $80 HP, 5 PP, 70 all attack. And when I mention all attack, I'm talking about melee, range, and tech power. I'm always going to refer to that as all attack. Make it fairly simple for you in case you haven't watched one of my videos beforehand. So if we take that and we add it with what we get from each of the units, we get a total of 200 HP, 20 PP, and 70 all attack. So pretty solid. That does require all 3 units to be equipped. The moment you remove one of them, you lose the actual damage stat from that equation itself. And this is just to address these really quickly. If we look at the Ray units, it's 50 HP per unit. They do not have a set bonus. They provide 25 all attack per unit and 9 PP. It's going to net you 27 PP, 150 HP, which is less than the BRISA units, and 25 all attack, meaning you're going to end up with 75 combining all 3 of them together. Not much more, but still is more. Why are people going after these so much? Why is this such sought after unit itself? Well, with the recent event that's popped up, not only the Independence Day event, but also the ARC's Boost Road, getting these units is basically free right now. You can get them as you're leveling characters. You get so many Rising Weapon Badge 2s, it's insane. I honestly spent one afternoon just running through to get my 3 runs of each, in case you didn't know of that event that's popped up. As long as you do 3 of each of the ARC's Boost Road, what is it? I can't think of the name. I want to say AQs. As long as you do 3 of the advanced quests of each of them, you'll get 20 star gems per the set that you do. So it's a total 60 star gems. I was running them for that. And in that time frame alone of just running them 3 times a piece, I was able to get enough Rising Weapon Badge 2s to buy almost an entire extra set of Ray units, which is extremely insane when you think about it. And why are these so useful? Well, not only are they technically some of the better units in the game from an offensive standpoint, not so much from defensive. Technically, if you're looking at BRISA, it does offer a bit more HP, so it's a bit more comfy in that situation. However, these units will have the utility of being able to attach left ring units to them, which will offer more damage and utility, as well as they will upgrade to Union units, providing an extra 25 HP per unit, bringing them up to adding 75 HP total, which will bring them over the BRISA units. So if we're going to cover everything here in this situation itself, there is no situation other than BRISA having a bit more HP that Ray doesn't cover. On top of that, you get them so easily while just trying to level. It's a breeze. It's basically free. So these are things we look at when we're looking at what quote is best in slot. Now, why do I say best in slot's a bit weird when it comes to North America, or when it comes to PSO2 in general? Well, you have something called affixes. Affixes increase stats on your actual gear. I guess they're called augments on North America. I always call them affixes, something that happens from playing JP for so long. But anyway, these augments increase stats. It's not the easiest thing in the world to add these augments on. Also, not everyone plays the same. So one thing to keep in mind, I'm actually going to show you guys something here. It's kind of cool. So one thing to keep in mind is someone who is liable to take a hit versus not to take a hit, their unit setup might be a bit different. Maybe you'll go ahead and go with a bit more HP, but someone who's played the game a bit longer is liable not to take that hit, might not need that extra HP to feel comfortable. Or they might play a class where they're invulnerable for upwards of 20 seconds. Braver. Memeing, of course, but I mean, they are invulnerable for 20 seconds using katana combat, which is pretty insane. Which is why people ask me why I recommend Braver all the time. I was like, it teaches you a lot of things, and also you have a very big comfy safety net during your biggest damage window if you really want it. So there you go. In case anyone's wondering why I always recommend that. But maybe you don't need that extra HP that someone else needs to be able to consistently deal damage. The nice thing about 12 stars, when it comes to 12 star units, we're going to go over to the JP version of the wiki here. is you can mix and match. You can actually get together things that you want. Since these don't have set bonuses, say you need a bit more HP, you can go with a unit that's got a bit more HP. That way, in case you're in a situation like a fighter where they get increased damage for being at lower HP, you might have a little bit more of a buffer to possibly survive a hit if you take one and not lose a bunch of damage. So we're looking at 12-star units. Let's go ahead and go through some of these here really quick. So like I mentioned, we have the array units that will evolve into, or that will upgrade into union units later on. Notice the extra 25 overall will be 75. So you can see that here. There's no extra damage, it's just extra HP. So it'll be kind of nice. Now, I mean, you've got a couple of other options in units here. You guys can go through these on your own time. I'll leave links in the video description. But as you can see, one of the major reasons why I don't mind investing into these units just a bit is if you're looking at all the 12-star units, yeah, there's some units that are better than others, but they're always trade-offs. For example, we look at this QFAD units and they have a ton of PP on them. They've got more attack, but look at how much HP they've got on them in comparison to something like, say, the union units. And then we can go to something, let's say, for example, where is the Xenesis series? The Xenesis series, which is not the upgrade, which is what the upgrades into the QFAD units. That's got 120 HP, 4 PP, and 15 on all attack. So in a situation where maybe you're playing a fighter and you need that extra HP, that way whenever you go into your overdrive, you're able to survive a little bit easier and you can be a little bit more aggressive with your attacks. This unit might be best in slot in your eyes for you. That's why the terminology or the term itself, best in slot, isn't exactly the easiest thing to look at when you're looking at games like PSO2, because there are a lot of options when you really look at it. Again, I'd recommend going through these when you guys get a chance. This is honestly, in my opinion, why I'm not too concerned about upgrading my units instantaneously when episode 4 comes out. Yes, there are going to be some units that are better. Yes, they're going to give you some marginal damage bonuses, but it's not going to be make or break by any means whatsoever. Same thing, to a lesser extent, comes down to weapons. The answer when it comes to weapons of best in slot versus not best in slot sometimes can be a bit more cut and dry. But weapons you're looking at, actually, I probably need the JP Wiki for this as well, so I'm probably going to swap over to it. But weapons we're looking at right now, like Nemesis and Slave, that are very powerful, also have a secondary use in situations where they're going to be upgrading into 15 stars. So when people are saying, well, what's best in slot? Nemesis/Slave is probably your best in slot weapon. Oh, but hey, we have a situation where something comes up that's different. We have something like the Form Scythe. The Form Scythe, technically, when it comes down to numbers, now I might be a bit off about this, but I have looked around a ton. I've double checked a plethora of calculations and things of that sort. I've checked with other players that have played for much longer than I have, that have been fantastic techers. You look at something like the Form Scythe and you see, well, you know what? It's technically not as strong as Nemesis/Slave, right? Not exactly. If you're playing Tekker and you are only left clicking, or I say auto attacking basically, and you're landing all of your hits, your subclass is Hunter, then Form Scythe is a bit better. And by a bit, I mean, I think it almost calculates out to being less than 1% more damage if you can land everything all the time. So is that worth 100 mil to you? Well, maybe you have the money like that and you want to go for it, sure. If not, getting that extra bit in damage may not be worth it to you, or hey, maybe you're prepping yourself to play something like Tekker Fighter because you want to play Phantom later on down the line and you want to focus more on techs, you want to do on auto attacks. Maybe you're playing something like Tekker Summoner. I don't know if that's actually a thing or not. That's just like a thought that just came in my head. Maybe you're playing something like Tekker Summoner where you're focusing again more on techs, less on the auto attacks. Hunter does not provide benefits for tech-based classes. You're getting defenses and you're getting striking damage. That's what you're getting from Hunter as a secondary. And because you have classes like Tekker, and yes, I'm going to say Tekker, not Tetcher. I'm going to say Tekker. I'm sorry. I'm not going to put myself through retraining my brain to say the other thing. It just sounds weird to me. But playing classes like Tekker that happen to be a hybrid class that can use both of these stats, these are something to keep in mind. One playstyle may not be the best for the other. So best in slot may not always be the best choice. And these are things that you want to consider when moving forward. A lot of PSO2 is progression, understanding what's going to be worth putting your money into and what's not going to be worth putting your money into. Look at how big of a damage bonus you can gain. And don't look at it from the perspective of my equipment is holding me back. It isn't always holding you back. I'll tell you guys a pretty embarrassing story of when I was playing PSO2 on JP. I was using, let's see. I'll show you guys an example too. I have no shame in doing it because it's one of the reasons that pushed me to strive to be a much better player. And I was just talking about it with that person literally yesterday in a stream because they were showing up on one of our other friend streams. Let's jump over to weapons. So this is when I was playing on the JP servers and I had that same mindset of pushing weapons, so on and so forth, right? And at the time, one of the best in slot weapons to get a hold of, right, was, where are they? 13 star. Where are you? Queefad sabers. Here we go. So these are some of the best weapons to get at the time, right? I had a pretty decent pair. You can see its raw damage is not stronger than what we have over on NA, funny enough. But they have this great potential on them. Increases your power by 14% and doubles the effect of special abilities attached to the weapon. Meaning that I spent probably a good 50 to 70 mil of fixing this weapon to have much more main stat. That way, I think I was at like 2k main stat on this weapon. It was nutty, right? And I went and did a run with my team with another bouncer who hadn't played in a while. He had gear that was pretty much weaker than mine. Actually, you know what? I'll show you guys what it was that he was using. It had to have been around here. Maybe it was a 13 star at the time. Hang on. Hold on a moment. There we go. It is a 13 star. So as you can see, what he was using was an orbit weapon. Now, these were meta for a little while, and what they did was they basically give you PP regen, which is kind of nice. It has a set effect that goes along with the leg that gives you some extra stats. As you can see, leg, weapon, extra 15 main stat, not too bad. Plus the actual, the ability that goes along with it actually made it be a pretty solid weapon. However, you can see that his weapon, not as strong as mine. But when we actually looked at how well we performed in the run itself, I got trashed pretty handedly. Like, it wasn't even close. And as far as gear goes, I had the superior gear. He just had more knowledge of the fight and the superior skill at the time. Which is why I say, if you're someone who's trying to improve, don't look at gear as a reason why it's holding you back. In all honesty, I had an extra 500 main stat on him. Easy. I should not have actually done less damage when it comes down to it than he did. Yeah, well, you can say, oh, well, you were trash. You know, you obviously weren't playing very well. But to be honest, the truth of the matter is that that's it. I wasn't playing as well as he was. If I was playing even half as good as he was, I probably should have done more damage, if not at least 75% as good as he was at the time. So these are things to keep in mind when you're looking at gear. That's why when people look at what is best in slot, you have this mindset a lot of players tend to have whenever other players ask what is best in slot, is like, dude, why does it matter? You're not that great at the game anyway. Why are you looking at best in slot? Which I challenge other players in a sense, some of the JP community, or the JP veterans as they are so called, you know, in quotes, JP vets, to remember that everyone's just starting. I always hear the conversation, well, you know, NA sucks. Well, to be perfectly honest, I've heard this conversation literally in any MMO I've ever played, and people who've watched my stream know this as well. I've mentioned it there too. When it comes to World of Warcraft, you hear the North America versus EU conversation. When it comes to Final Fantasy XIV, you hear the North America versus JP conversation. To be honest, yes, I get it. One community might do better than the other, but to judge an entire community based on like the average kind of sucks. There are plenty of players out there that put time and effort into being good players. When someone is seeking knowledge and the first response they get is just something derogatory, it turns them off fairly quickly of wanting to become a better player. Because what they see is, I'm just going to end up like this person anyway, so why would I bother? So I challenge you guys not to completely jump that sort of way whenever you see these things pop up. Because, I mean, for me personally, I try to shut it down as much as I possibly can. I think it's the shittiest way to respond to anything. And honestly, that might get me demonetized, but I really don't care. It sucks. It's dumb. And I personally don't like it whatsoever. I would, yes, like people to improve. However, we also need to take a stance as a community, not to just push people to help them improve, but to provide information in a way that is inviting for people to improve. No one's going to want to ask any questions if they feel like they're just going to get jumped on about them. It's going to be dumb and it sucks. And I agree that it sucks, and maybe you guys should, maybe everyone should look to improve on their own. However, that's not how everyone looks into the game. So I apologize, it's turned into a little bit of a rant when it comes to BIS, but honestly, these are the conversations that tend to pop up when it comes to best in slot, especially when it comes to the PSO2 community. I'm not saying that they're worse are better than any other community, specifically when it comes down to it, because I've been a part of tons and tons of other communities where for them it's unhealthy that there's such an easy choice in what the best weapon is and so on and so forth. Now, granted, I'm not saying that you're a special snowflake if you pick a weapon that's weaker and you're doing fantastic with it. There is technically going to be a better choice in most situations. I say this because I think immediately I think of the people that tend to link builds when it comes down to Monster Hunter or something along those lines of, I don't go with meta, so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. Look, I get it. Cool. Be a special snowflake with whatever you want to use. That's totally fine. What I'm saying is that there's more than one perspective when it comes to looking at weapons. There's more than one perspective when it comes to looking at units. And there's plenty of perspectives when it comes to looking at best in slot. Try to take them into account before firing off. Anyway, guys, if you have any notable information to add to this conversation, feel free to toss in the comments below. I'm sure there's gonna be tons and tons of questions about people. What weapon should I use? What unit should I use? So on and so forth. Again, be respectful to one another is all I ask in the comments. Whenever you're talking to one another, I am not tolerating anyone being hateful or being rude. I'm honestly just gonna delete your comment. I'm just gonna eat you into the stratosphere, dude. Like, I don't care. That's how it's gonna go. I have no patience for it. A like on the video is much appreciated. It absolves half of your ad block guilt, and the other half is absolved by subscribing. Both being completely free makes you feel all warm and fuzzy on the inside. Thanks for making it to the end of the video, guys. If you guys do want to see more content similar to this, I know I do a lot of these sorts of things where I just kind of talk to you guys about what's going on, what's in my head, what I want to talk to you guys about. Let me know. I don't want to say I'm taking a break from the game itself, but I am like not pushing it nearly as hard as I usually do, because there are other things I want to play as well. I'm going to play those other things. That way I don't completely lose my mind. Anyway, guys, I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Peace out.